Hello and welcome to episode number 46 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And we are coming at you. It's the ninth inning of the A's versus Yankees game. Nothing that happens in the remainder of the game is going to affect the matchups unless, I guess, something crazy happens and Chapman ends up pitching. But we've got a pretty clear picture now as to what the playoffs are going to look like and what the teams on the bubble need to do in order to secure their spot.
Yeah, we have later on we'll spell out what all the playoff scenarios are, but let's quickly review what it was going into this week. The top seed was me. I've locked that up. There's no debate there. Cam currently has the 2 seed, and with Erik losing to me last week, his chances are to buy. We're on life support going into this week, but he does own the 3 seed currently. Conor is only a half game back of him for the 4 seed going into this week, so potentially a little bit of drama there. Anthony currently owns the 5 seed, and Clayton and Jake own the 6 seed. EBO would be missing the playoffs if games or if the playoffs started before this week. But all 3 of them were tied with the same record. So a lot of really interesting stuff here. And do we want to dive into these matchups?
Yeah, so we're going to change the format of this episode a little bit. So we're just going to kind of talk very quickly. I guess knowing us, you never know how quick it's going to be. But hopefully quickly about the matchups that didn't have any playoff implications, and then kind of dive deeper into the ones that did, and then spend more time talking about what's going on next week for those 3 teams, and then what exactly they need to do in the final week in order to try and get a playoff spot.
Yeah, and we'll also mention a couple of the other potential seeding kind of disputes that are currently exist, including one for the 3rd and 4th seeds, and potentially who will get 5 and who will get 6, depending on how the bottom half of the playoffs works out. But yeah, so our first matchup, it's going to be a matchup that looked like it was going to be 12-0 up until a very late Mark Canha double in the bottom of the 8th of the last game. I say that now, but Gio Urshela is about to come up for Conor. And if he hits a double here, Conor will get it back. So maybe this might change live on the air, but Conor just dominated Daniel and Alex this week.
God, he really did. And why all of a sudden did it take that Hansel Robles hold away? Something.
It didn't.
No, it's just ESPN being weird on my end. Never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, Conor dominated. He hit 63 doubles and 65 RBIs. And I don't know if I've
63
at least this year
runs,
seen a team.
not 63 doubles, but 63 doubles would be insane.
God, I've only had 1 beer, so I don't know where that came from. 63 runs, 65 RBIs, 14 doubles, which is, I mean, that not on its own isn't spectacular or anything, but it's pretty good. And he dominated. I mean, we've been waiting a while to see this out of Conor. He won runs by 39, which is just absurd. And I don't know if I've ever seen a team get 60 runs and 60 RBIs.
Doesn't happen too often.
It really doesn't.
Well, I guess my question for you before we move on to the next matchup, and Urshela grounded out, so it will indeed be an 11-0-1, and the Yankees-A's game is over, which means all of the matchups are finalized. But my question for you is, do you think Conor is a bigger threat now in the playoffs after seeing him this week, or do you think this was just a flash in the pan?
I don't know. I mean, I think he thoroughly dominated. He looked like the best team in the league this week, which it's 1 week, but he played better than anyone else did. I mean, just look, the ERA and the WHIP were great, and he had 6 quality starts too, out of 7 starts. which just is efficient more than anything. And I think I definitely respect this team more than I did last week. I'm not sure I'm like positive that they're going to win their first round matchup, but I feel better about them. I think they're probably going to win next week and put it in Erik's hands for that 3-4.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Conor definitely looks a lot better than he did the week before. And I think he could win one playoff matchup if he, depending on who he'd have to play in the first round. And we'll get into that more later. I definitely think that, this team when it's playing at its best can be, somewhat of a threat. But the one thing I'll caution is, as we saw last week when I kind of put up a similarly dominant week and then kind of shat the bed this week, anything can happen on a week-to-week basis.
That is true. Anything can happen. And speaking of anything can happen, that just feels like the perfect segue into the next matchup we want to talk to, which is you lost to Ruthvik.
There was so mmany weird things about this matchup. Like, Ruthvik wasn't set in his lineup at the beginning of the week. If we put Barrios in, like, he loses because he would have, or for Barrios' first start of the week, he would have lost because he would have lost ERA. Barrios had 3 innings, 9 hits that day. Today he puts in Barrios, he pitches 7 shutout innings. And I just had had some injuries this week. Like, Muncy didn't play a couple games. Ketel Marte didn't start twice this week. In the games he didn't start, I left him on my bench, and he hit 2 home runs, which would have been enough for me to tie the matchup or maybe even win. Had I started him on the days he wasn't playing. Kyle Hendricks gave up a 3-run homer right before he left the game today, and if he hadn't given that up, I would have won. So just so many crazy things. The pitching overall was really solid, other than Kyle Hendricks giving up 8 earned runs today. The hitting left a lot to be desired. I think my team had almost 40 more RBIs last week than I had this week. I'm not overly concerned, especially because my offense is finally healthy. Losing Flaherty was a bummer. And Eflin looking like he's going to come back and now looking like he might be out for the year is a bummer. But this team is relatively healthy, and it sucks, but it happens. What's interesting though is, after starting the season 13-0, I'm now 3-1 in my last 7 games. And I'm 0-2-1 against non-playoff teams and 3-1 against teams that are in the top 7 in the standings right now. And all 4 of those games were over the last month. So, I beat Anthony 9-3, beat Conor 7-4-1. I crushed Erik last week 11-1, with only the blowout loss to you kind of being the stain the last 4 weeks. All my other losses have been 5-6-1 losses to Yuki and Ruthvik and Nick, and then the tie to Alex. So I'm not super concerned. But definitely not happy that my team is 500 over its last 7 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely frustrating for sure, to just kind of flatline for a little while. And this week, I guess it was just one of those weeks that nothing went right for you. I mean, you were super close in a lot of categories, but they all fell to Ruthvik. And I mean, your offense sucked, but your offense sucked, but it doesn't suck, if you kind of get what I mean. And that's something, you're going to be fine, but it was not good.
I lead the league in runs, homers, and ribbies, and I'm second in OBP on the season. I'm not concerned about them long term. They had a down week. This happens. I'm not super worried in the long term.
No. And this win for Ruthvik actually pushes him ahead of the Crone Zone.
It's significant for the lottery odds.
It really is. Now because that pushes, and that's the difference between the 8 and 9 seeds, which would give Andrew 10% I mean, it gave Andrew 20% odds at the first pick and Ruthvik and Nick 10% odds at the first pick. That cutoff is a big cutoff. And if Andrew wants to get that first pick for the second year in a row, this is very important to him.
Well, I've just come to realize that that's not really relevant because Andrew owns both of those picks.
Oh, well, that's true. Very few people own their own picks anyway. So
but I guess
it doesn't matter that much.
But I guess Andrew owns his second round pick, and we voted that the second and third rounds will not be affected by the draft lottery this year. So
okay, so yeah. it's a difference of one in the second round.
Exactly, but who knows? You know, a difference of one in the second round was the difference between Kyler Murray and Jonathan India.
That is true.
2019 draft. So you never know.
You really never know. And moving on, the third matchup that didn't have playoff implications. Erik beat Yuki 10-2. And this one, Erik needed to keep winning in order to keep his hopes alive at the bye. But this one ultimately didn't matter because I won my matchup, which kind of rendered this one irrelevant. And Erik was going to be in that 3 or 4 if he loses next week, regardless. This one, Erik played pretty well. He got 89 strikeouts and 7 quality starts. The ERA wasn't amazing, but the whip was really good. And he scored 53 runs. Just a really solid, steady week from Erik. Nothing super big to talk about. He just played well.
Yeah, good for him to bounce back from a 2-game losing streak. He lost to Clayton and Jake the week before he lost to me. So I expect him to finish the season strong against Daniel, Alex, and Greg next week. Yeah, not really much to talk about this matchup, but you mentioned yourself. And I think it's a great segue into the 3 matchups that did matter. The first being you versus Anthony. You won 7-4-1. As you mentioned, this officially clinches the 2 seed for you, so a first round bye along with me. But I think most of what we need to talk about here is Anthony.
Yeah, this matchup, Anthony led up until Friday. It was a very hard-fought matchup. Anthony really needed to win this one because if he had, he would have maybe not locked up a playoff spot, but come pretty close to it. And he really had a chance, and Alex Reyes just blew it for him. He gave up, blew the save on Saturday, gave up 3 runs that ultimately would have tied the matchup if Anthony had saves, and it would have flipped ERA in his favor. So just a disaster there. Today, on Sunday, he was phenomenal on offense, just had a great day. And even pitching wise too, he had a surprisingly good start from Taylor Hearn, which ruined any chance of me flipping whip back. But he today had a 522 on base, 10 runs and 14 RBIs. And that was very nearly enough to flip on base or runs. And just almost just coming up short. And now he's going to drop to 9-9-2.
Yeah, this was a tough one for Anthony for sure. And I think tough because he came particularly close. And he didn't play the greatest. I swear yesterday he had like a 260 OBP, and I chatted. I was like, this is like ridiculous. And kudos to him for being able to bring that up today. But he's lost 4 of his last 5. 3 of those to top 7 teams, and his only win in that period was against Ruthvik and Nick. He's now 3-8-2 since starting the season 6-1. So we said this last week. He just does not look like a playoff team right now. But on the strength of how he played at the beginning of the year, he might make it. But I'm not particularly optimistic about his team. I feel like he's decent offensive pieces, so it kind of baffles me how on a week-to-week basis he's just not doing a lot offensively. He's got Jazz Chisholm, and who's been solid. You know, Kyle Seager's been consistent. Xander Bogaerts, like, I guess other than Bogaerts, there's not like a real stud on this offense. I mean, maybe Grandal qualifies, but like he hasn't been healthy. But I also don't think his offense should be performing as bad as it is. So I don't know. This team's hard to figure out. It doesn't feel like a playoff team right now, and I'm kind of disappointed that he didn't make a bigger push at the deadline to acquire a couple more hitters. But
Yeah, he needs another hitter. And it doesn't look like Mike Trout will be back this coming week, which really hurts. And we'll talk later on about whether we think he's going to make the playoffs and what we think or what he needs to do in order to jump ahead of one of those two teams.
yeah, he is currently a half game back of EBO and a game back of Clayton and Jake. And speaking of those two, which one do we want to talk about next?
Let's talk about the tie. Ties are fun. EBO has their 7th tie of the year. If they lose next week, they will finish 7-7-7. That is absurd.
Who would have seen that coming into this year?
No team has ever tied more than 3 times. They've doubled that and then some. They're gonna I guess drop because it'll lower their win percentage, drop to 7-6-7. They tied Alex and Zach. And they didn't play well this week.
No, I mean, the 338 ERA, 119 whip, not terrible.
Right, but not what it should be for this team and this strategy. It was good enough to win, but not those numbers should be elite week in and week out.
Ditto with the 4 saves and 3 holds should be better. And then offensively, other than stolen bases, they weren't really able to get anything going. And I feel like they're just really inconsistent week to week. I mean, they're like pulling out wins and ties right now, but like they're kind of ugly. It's like, it's not pretty. Although somehow they're now 5-1-1 over their last 7 games. And if you expand that slightly farther out, they're 5-1-3 over their last 9.
I would wager to say their first 5 weeks they started out 0-3-2. Their last 5 weeks they've been 3-1-1. I would say that they were better their first 5 weeks than they have been their most recent 5 weeks, despite the wins and losses not showing that.
Yeah, I think I'd say so. They were playing some really good teams really close to the beginning of the year.
Now they're playing bad teams really close.
Interestingly, over the last 9 weeks, their only loss was do you want to guess who they lost to?
You?
No, Daniel, Alex, and Greg.
Oh man, that's right. I blocked that one out.
If you expanded to 10 weeks, they did lose to meet in the middle of June, and that was their last loss. Other than that, but I mean, they tied Erik, or in a 9-week span, they tied Erik. They beat you. They beat Anthony. And then some convincing wins against the lesser teams, 10-2 over Ruthvik and Nick, 9-3 over Andrew. I guess almost lost to Yuki, a 6-5-1 win.
A lot of teams have almost lost to Yuki. I almost lost twice to Yuki.
Yeah, I don't get his team, but that's for another day. That's for another rant in the off season. But they're just kind of pulling out wins out their ass. I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, unlike Anthony, who was, 3-2 over his last 12, EBO are 7-3-5 in their last 15 after starting the season 0-3-2. So, I mean, it's working. I don't know how, but it's like it's working. They're not looking super impressive each week, but they keep racking up wins, and they have played their way back into this playoff hunt. Who would have seen this after week 5? I certainly did.
It's crazy. It's just, I mean, this whole season has been who would have expected this.
But what's crazy is for as mediocre as they're like kind of been playing on a week to week basis, I don't really want to face them in the playoffs.
Me neither. I mean, I would rather face them than Clayton and Jake, I guess. That answer would have been flip-flopped 3 weeks ago. But I don't want to face them. I went 0-1-1 against them on the year. I wouldn't want another matchup with them.
No, Zane in the playoffs has some like voodoo magic. Like I think he's gonna go like all in and like, you know, it's his last year. So like and the beauty of this reliever strategy in the playoffs is that you could just cut a bunch of guys to make space for like other guys. And there's no real implications because like a lot of these guys you're cutting like have like minimal trade value, it's not like, Yu Darvish starts on a Saturday and you need an extra guy for Sunday so you can cut Yu Darvish, or, I can cut, Garrett Cole. They can cut, one of their holds guys or something to make room. So I don't want to face this team, but there is a team I don't want to face less. And unless you have anything else to say about EBO, I'm ready to talk about Clayton and Jake.
No, let's dive into Clayton and Jake. They this one was also close. It was only 7-5, but they have beaten Andrew.
They got lucky.
They did.
Had Andrew started, Jesus Luzardo today pitched 6 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts. Andrew flips whip and strikeouts, and he wins 7-5. But as it stands, he didn't start him. Jordan Montgomery pitched very well today, but not enough to flip a whip or strikeouts. He finished. Andrew finished with 67 strikeouts to Clayton and Jake 69. Jordan Montgomery, how many strikeouts did he have?
He had 3 strikeouts in 6 innings, which, talk about unlucky. Jordan Montgomery averages a strikeout per inning.
Yeah.
1 strikeout per inning would have flipped strikeouts exactly 70-69 and made it a tie. But unfortunately not the case.
Just kind of crazy how this all played out. This is really big for Clayton and Jake, obviously. Like, I don't think we need to, say it out. Like, they were the only one of those 3 teams to win this week. They're now a half game above EBO. They're now a full game above Anthony. And I think this is the team of that bunch I want to play the least. They are, over their last few weeks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins, 2 losses, and a tie over their last 10 games, which spans from June 7th to today. So it's basically 3 months worth of matchups.
Yeah, they were solid this week. They weren't as big world beaters as they were the last couple of weeks, but they still had a solid week that would have beaten a lot of teams, and especially those 20 homers. But yeah, I agree. I do not want to face them. Luke Voigt kind of looks like he's starting to heat up. And even Kike Hernandez had a good week. So, and even Jorge Soler had a good week. So I don't want to face them, but it's looking like they are in the driver's seat for that 5 seed.
Oh yeah. I actually got it wrong. So they were 8-2-1 over their last 11. I haven't counted today's W. But they started the season 2-6-1, and they traded away some pretty big names. Like Lance Lynn was traded by them, Zach Greinke. They didn't get much of a return out of it. Luke Voigt, who's not really been doing much all year, and Kyle Lewis has been sitting on his IL, and a couple other trades like that. And it's weird because their team got better after that.
Man, they really did. I don't know how.
And imagine what their record would be if they didn't trade Lynn or Greinke.
God, especially Lynn. But it's crazy. And then they kind of sold out a little bit, even trading away Marco Luciano at the deadline, selling out for that 5 or 6 seed, which may have not been the most smart long-term move, but they're just an interesting season for them in general.
Don't forget they traded Mackenzie Gore away too.
That's true.
And they got, Gallon, and they got Jose Abreu. Actually, he had one good start at least since they acquired him. I don't know if he ended up having another one.
He was solid this past whatever day of the week the 26th was.
That was a Thursday. He had 7 shutout innings against Colorado before that, but he generally had not been pitching so hot before that. Like 6.62 ERA in July, 5.11 in June, 4.50 in May. I almost wonder if Ruthvik should hold on to him, maybe see if his value get higher, but that's a whole nother point.
I mean, even if his value got higher, he sold him for a price that's as good as he would have gotten if the value was high. So
I think it's probably relatively accurate. I think maybe a little more, but I don't know how much more. I just can't believe. I mean, if you were to tell me after week 9 when they were 2-6-1 and EBO was still scuffling, maybe getting closer to 500, but not doing too much, that these two teams would currently be the 5 and 6 seed. I mean, I'd call you crazy. I mean, we both thought that Ruthvik would eventually get his act together and be one of these playoff teams. And that just wasn't the case. And we also thought Anthony was kind of close to a lock after starting 6-1. I mean, I just kind of assumed the 6 playoff teams would be me, you, Erik, Anthony, Ruthvik, and Nick, and Conor in that order. And it is very much not the case. We got the top 3 right. And we got Conor right. But everything else is just kind of been a mixed bag. This is why we play 21 weeks of the season.
It really is. I love the fact that we play a full season. I mean, obviously, but
a lot better than last year. We didn't get a full
lot better than last year. That is true.
We got 6 weeks last year of a regular season, so not taking it for granted.
Absolutely, and hopefully, oh God, I hope there are no work stoppages next year.
Oh God, let's not talk about that.
Let's not talk about that. We're gonna have another full season. It's gonna be great, and we're gonna be the 1 and 2 seeds again.
Yeah. And I will win my 3rd straight championship.
But yeah, is there anything else we want to talk about in regards to Clayton and Jake?
No.
Or is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to the Crone Zone?
I mean, shout out to Andrew for keeping it close. And it's funny because he was up 9-1 to 2 at one point this week. I thought he was going to blow him out, but he didn't. But it's not like he played bad. The offensive numbers are really good. He's only 1 ribby short, only 2 Ks short, only a save short, .03 short on the whip. He played a very competitive matchup against them. But it's almost for the reasons we explained when we were talking about Ruthvik winning, it was almost probably a good thing that he lost just for his playoff or his draft pick seeding. Not that it's a guarantee that either his pick or Ruthvik's pick was going to be the one with the 20% odds, and one of them would be 10% odds. But yeah, it wasn't a bad week by him. You have anything else to add about his team?
No, just other than I guess Clayton and Jake needed 10 RBIs today. I guess, and Andrew had 9, so they were tied in RBIs going into today, and Clayton and Jake did come out on top, and that was the difference-making category.
Yeah, no, I mean their team. These are the types of performances that you remember that are the little things that get you into the playoffs, or that make the big difference. And we're starting to see this now. I mean, there are 2 isolated decisions this week that made a huge impact on the potential playoff picture. And one was Andrew benching Jesus Luzardo, and he's not even a playoff team. He just happened to be playing a playoff team. The other one was Anthony starting Alex Reyes. And it's crazy how these little moments, these little decisions, one pitch thrown by one player can suddenly knock a team out of the playoffs. I think that's just insane, but it just makes this so much fun.
It really does. But yes, are we ready to dive into our preview of next week?
Yes, let's do that. How are we going to start this? Were we going to talk about the matchups, talk about the standings?
So we've kind of talked about the standings. Let's talk tiebreakers, and let's explain what the tiebreakers are. So basically, Clayton Jake is half a game above EBO, who are half a game above Anthony. The tiebreakers for this league are as follows. The first tiebreaker is head-to-head record. Second tiebreaker is record against one's own division. And the third tiebreaker is a coin flip, which I'm guessing would be done on Zoom as a group and not just what ESPN decides. So as for the head-to-head, Anthony has lost both the matchups to EBO. So EBO has the first tiebreaker over Anthony. Jake and Clayton and Anthony split their series. So they are tied in the first tiebreaker. And EBO beat Clayton and Jake in their first matchup. And Clayton and Jake and them play once again in the final matchup. Moving on to the second tiebreaker. Within divisions, Anthony is 6-3-1, EBO is 3-3-4, and Jake and Clayton are 5-3-2, which means Anthony holds the second tiebreaker over Clayton and Jake, and Clayton and Jake hold the second tiebreaker over EBO, which means Clayton and Jake beat EBO in the first matchup, which means that either if they win, they take the first tiebreaker, or if they lose, they split the first tiebreaker and Jake and Clayton take the second tiebreaker, which means they have the advantage over them regardless. Which brings us to this. So it's kind of a circle, kind of a cycle in terms of tiebreakers. But basically, here's what each team needs. And I guess let's start with Anthony let's start with this. If EBO and Jake and Clayton tie, then they're both in the playoffs, because that would, regardless of what happens to Anthony, if they tie, then even if Anthony wins, Jake and Clayton are half a game ahead of everyone, and EBO would be tied with Anthony with the tiebreaker. If one of those two teams loses and Anthony wins, he is in regardless. So Anthony needs to win. If Anthony ties or loses, he is out regardless. Because if he ties, then that means Jake and Clayton have the advantage over him, and EBO can be no worse than tied with him. And since they have the tiebreaker over him, they would make the playoffs and he wouldn't. So Anthony needs to win, and he needs a winner in the other matchups. Clayton and Jake, who are currently in the 5 spot, they make the playoffs with a win or a tie. Pretty straightforward there. If they win, they keep their advantage over EBO. If they tie, it's what I detailed earlier. If they lose, then it's complicated. Basically, if they lose, they are out if Anthony wins, and they're in if Anthony doesn't win. And EBO, it's exactly the same. They're in if they win or tie, and they're out if they lose and Anthony wins. But they're still in if they lose and Anthony loses or ties. So that kind of, does that all kind of make sense? Did I sum that up properly?
I think you did. Basically what this boils down to is all these teams almost entirely control their own destiny, where like with Clayton and Jake and EBO being able are winning in. And the beauty of those two playing next week for Anthony means that like he only has to worry about that one matchup. There's no scenario in which both Clayton and Jake and EBO can win. But Anthony's scenario to win and get in is only applicable if Clayton and Jake and EBO does not end in a tie. So it is kind of weird where like the two matchups involving those teams next week are going to be really tightly contested. It's just weird. It's just like the whole dynamic of Clayton and Jake and EBO playing each other kind of makes this weird. And then the fact that EBO just ties so often, it means that like the tie scenarios are actually like very legitimate. And could be the thing that keeps Anthony out of the playoffs, even if he wins next week, which is hard to believe that him winning next week and two teams tying would keep him out, but it can. So, I mean, this is just insanely complicated. I don't know if you mentioned this, but Clayton and Jake can beat a 5 or 6, and EBO can beat a 5 or 6, but Anthony can only beat a 6 seed per the tiebreakers.
Yes, that's correct. Anthony cannot be the 5 seed because if he wins, then one of the other two teams has to win the other matchup, and since they're both ahead of him, then that team would take the 6 or take the 5.
Yeah, so it looks like so Anthony, if he wins, is locked into the 6. I mean, Clayton and Jake and EBO, it depends. Clayton and Jake do have the tiebreaker over EBO. So both of them make the playoffs. Clayton and Jake will be the 5. And EBO is the 6. Which I guess means Clayton and Jake are either the 5 or they're not in the playoffs, because there's no scenario in which EBO or Anthony could be the 5 above them.
Right. Yeah. So one of those. One of those teams is going to be the 5.
So it's either Clayton and Jake 5, EBO 6, or Clayton and Jake 5, Anthony 6,
or one of those two
5,
teams.
Anthony 6.
Yes. Yeah, one of those two teams is the 5 and the other is the 6.
Correct. With Clayton and Jake and Anthony being locked into the 5 or the 6 and they make the playoffs. And it's kind of weird that Clayton and Jake could miss the playoffs or be the 5 seed, but they can't be the 6 seed. That's weird.
It's super weird. Yeah, they can be jumped by both of them or neither of them. Or I guess they can be jumped by, they could be the 6, the VBO's the 5, right?
No, because they own the tiebreaker over EBO.
So, all right, let's map this out in real time. Let's say EBO beats them, which would put EBO half a game ahead of them. If Anthony loses there, then that would make EBO 5, Jake and Clayton 6, Anthony 7, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I doubted my initial I charted this out before we went on air because this was obviously complicated, and I messed that up. So yeah, there is a scenario where Clayton and Jake are the 6, but I think it's more likely than not right now they would finish as the 5. But do we detail also Erik and Conor?
Yeah, so this one's substantially less complicated.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, so Conor is only half a game behind Erik. Conor faces Anthony, actually, which is kind of fun. If Conor beats Anthony and Erik loses, then Conor's 3, Erik's 4. If Erik wins or ties, let's see how they're so Erik beat Conor both times. If Erik wins or ties, Erik is 3 no matter what.
Yeah.
Which is definitely big because you'd rather play Anthony than EBO or Jake, I would think.
Yeah.
So basically Erik controls his own destiny there, but Conor would want to win for sure, and just try and get that 3 seed. Erik is playing, I believe, Yuki, correct? No, Erik just played Yuki.
He's playing Daniel, Alex, and Greg. He played Yuki this week. So like it's like a 99% chance like Erik finishes as the 3 and Conor finishes as the 4. But like I lost to Yuki earlier this year. Like we don't know what will happen. But if I had to predict what's going to happen right now, it's going to be me 1, you 2, Erik 3, Conor 4, and then who knows what's 5 and 6.
That's true. And I do want to take a moment and shout out Conor with his win this past week. He has officially clinched a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And as either the 3 or 4 seeds. So congratulations to Conor. It took a long time, but you've built up a great team, and you're gonna have home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, can we do a quick sidebar here to just like look at like some of the guys that we gave Conor on draft day? So for those of you who don't know, Conor was not there on draft day. We auto drafted for him. The first maybe like 5 to 8 rounds, we gave him legitimate picks, and then it really kind of went downhill from there, including...
But even one of those legitimate picks was Madison Bumgarner and Will Myers.
Well, in his defense, Bumgarner was like solid for the first couple of years in the league, and he actually traded him to me in one of the first trades in the league in a deal for Victor Robles, who at the time was like a top 5 prospect and is now shot the bed. But like Chris Davis was a 21st round pick for him. Brian McCann on his way out of the league, 23rd round pick. Matt Harvey, 26th round pick. Jeff Hoffman, 33rd round. Mark Appel, who I don't even think was playing at that point, was his 40th round pick.
Yep, Mark Appel had retired, and I think he has since unretired.
Yeah, he has. He just recently unretired. But we also kind of gave him some gems late. Brandon Woodruff in the 36th, Shane Baz in the 37th, Kyle Lewis in the 30th. Jorge Soler has kind of been up and down, but in the 25th round, it's a pretty good bargain. Mitch Keller in the 24th, he's been a pretty highly rated prospect. And we also gave him Carlos Gonzalez in the 22nd, Dustin Pedroia in the 31st. So let's not pretend that we did him much good. But yeah, kudos to Conor. Even Greg Bird in the 14th round.
Ugh.
Greg Bird. Evan Longoria in the 18th too. Greg, we did him dirty. I mean, he literally inherited nothing, and he's built this team up. And the only player that's still on the initial team he drafted was Yohan Moncada.
That's true, and I don't think I see him ever getting rid of Yohan Moncada.
No, it's funny because like Yohan Moncada is like not having that good of a year. Let's see if I can pull this up quickly. I remember like I was listening to a Fangraphs podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, Yohan Moncada might be droppable in like 10-team leagues. I guess he's doing better than I thought. I don't know what these guys are talking about. He's got a 376 OBP, so right away in our league that makes him valuable. But he only has 11 homers and 3 steals in 118 games, 503 plate appearances.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's not good either. 11 homers and 503 plate appearances. He put up, he in comparison in 2019 and 56 more plate appearances, he had 14 more homers. He had 25 homers.
Hold on. Let's stop talking about Yohan Moncada. I noticed something far more interesting. Max and Teo's team, which is now owned by Alex and Zach. After Alex and Zach traded away Robbie Ray, they are officially the first team to no longer have any players that they originally drafted.
Yeah. Crazy, right? And I think Erik also reached that point. But Erik has since added back Stanton and Whit Merrifield.
That's true, I guess.
But there is nobody from this original team that is still on this team. I mean, that is nuts. And you're actually, I mean, Max and Teo knocked it out of the park in this draft. Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor, Wilson Contreras, Ronald Acuna, Aaron Nola looked bad at the time, but now Robbie Ray, I mean, Conforto in the 8th, Kopech in the 13th, Tatis in the 15th, Eduardo Rodriguez in the 19th, AJ Puck in the 22nd.
I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez isn't those other guys, but continue.
Yeah, but like in the 19th round, relative to where you're drafting him,
Mm.
I think is more of my point. Lance Lynn in the 28th, Jordan Montgomery in the 30th, Joe Adele in the 36th, Carter Kieboom in the 35th, although he's been a little in the majors, and for some reason Leody Taveras was on this team. Mitchell White pitched today for the Dodgers, and he was a 40th round pick. I'd say anybody you drafted in the 40th round, it was a prospect who made it to the majors, is a win in my book.
Eric's 40th round pick was Trevor Rogers. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's nuts. Shed Long, I drafted in the 40th round. Griffin and Matt drafted Brandon Marsh.
Hey, okay.
Who you traded for Tyler Mahle.
Yeah, that's pretty good too.
Who you reunited.
Eric and Griffin and Matt were the two best 40th round picks. Definitely two great sets of owners, right?
Yes. Two very, very great sets of owners here. How about Erik drafting? And I know Erik was basically just like, I don't know, prospects. I'm just going to draft a bunch of Marlins and Tigers prospects. How about a Sandy Alcantara in the 36th round?
Man, yeah, that's pretty good too.
That's nuts. There's
a lot of those guys missed, but the guys who hit really hit.
You know, in the off season, we need to like go through and pick like our favorite pick from each round, or like the best pick and the worst pick from each round. And like we could do these like 10 rounds at a time or something. Like make it a series.
Yeah, I like that. Back to Eduardo Rodriguez, you were saying, oh, he's great. He was 6th in Cy Young in 2019. He should be selling for a lot. He was not actually good the year he finished 6th in Cy Young. So that argument.
No, look, I don't think Eduardo Rodriguez is so complicated because he'll have like a 2-month stretch where he looks like the worst pitcher in baseball, and then for 2 months he's on fire. And it's interesting, like look at his like peripherals this year. It's a 1066 K per 9, a 270 walk per 9. And he has a 349 FIP, but he has a 512 ERA. I think that kind of encapsulates him. I mean, he's going to strike out a bunch. He had 200 innings in 2019, but he's just like not he's never able to keep it together over a full season. But like as a 19th round pick, like look who else won in that round. Tyler Chatwood went in that round. Yuris Familia went in that round. Brad Hand, Adubel Herrera, Willie Calhoun, Hector Neris, Johnny Cueto, Jay Bruce, Kelvin Herrera. I mean, like Mackenzie Gore and Kyle Tucker are probably only two players in that round who are better or have more value. Jury's out on Gore for what he'll do in the majors, especially after how awful he's been this year. But
yeah, I guess we'd have to see what Kelvin Herrera did for Eric's team in 2018, because if he got a lot of saves that helped him win the championship, that would put him into the top 3.
I'm pretty sure Kelvin Herrera, and let me search this up quickly. He traded him to me at one point. Yes, he was in the Jack Flaherty, Eddie Rosario deal. Walk It Like I Bought It has agreed to trade Jack Flaherty, Andrew Miller, and Kelvin Herrera to the Church of Hannah God for Eddie Rosario, Joaquin Soria, and a player to be named later.
What's the date on that?
June 22nd, 2018.
Interesting. So that kind of.
Well, Kelvin Herrera, if you recall that year, he started the year in the Royals and did really good. Then he got traded to the Nationals and shat the bed. And then
he was great with the Royals though, and he was still with the Royals that entire time. And he got it's not showing me how many saves he got, but he had an ERA under 1 at that point.
Well, then I traded him to Conor. Along with the 2020 third-round pick and a conditional pick for Adrian Morejón. This is the second time there was a conditional pick in a trade. The first one was in the terrible Yordan Alvarez trade I made, which looks really even worse in hindsight with how good Cal Quantrill's been. Although, like in my defense, Greinke was like critical for me winning a championship. I wouldn't have won it last year without him. Pitching as well as he did that Sunday in the semis or the quality starts, so like whatever. But second time there was a conditional pick and a trade. Conor would have received a second-round pick in the 2019 draft if I didn't win the championship, and a third-round pick if I did win the championship. I did not win the championship that year.
You did not.
Unfortunately. That was the only time in league history I haven't made it to the finals. Lost in the semis to EVO. Maybe you'll see another me v EVO playoff matchup.
But yes, speaking of playoff matchups, let's get back in here.
Yeah, we want
one thing.
That was one of our better tangents, but
yeah, yeah, it was a long one, but it was fun. And one thing I wanted to talk about before we talk specifically about the matchups is what the draft pick with these three teams. One of them is going to miss the playoffs and thus be in the lottery. And what that means for the draft picks, none of these three teams own their own first rounders. Anthony's pick and EBO's pick are both owned by Erik, and Jake and Clayton's pick is owned by me. So that kind of adds another layer to that little rivalry we've got. Jake, I would be rooting for Jake and Clayton to miss the playoffs so that I can get a chance at the first round pick. Erik is rooting for Jake and Clayton to make the playoffs so that he's guaranteed one of his two first rounders being in the lottery. So that's just really interesting there. Erik.
Here's a question. If you're Erik and if you think that Clayton and Jake are the biggest threat of those three teams, and you might have to play them in the first round, or let's say the way things work out, like they would be the team he has to play in the first round. Would you rather have the better picks, or would you rather have the better first round matchup?
I think you'd rather have the better first round matchup, and Erik can get both assuming Erik is the 3 seed. If Jake and Clayton are 5, Anthony is 6, and EBO is 7.
That's true. Although Erik could still fall to 4, I guess, but yeah, I think it's more likely to not he'll be the 3 seed. So he could avoid it, but I think that's definitely an interesting scenario to kind of look at. I think as it stands, I think Erik's going to get one lottery first round pick. I don't think he's going to get both of them to be lottery first round picks.
They definitely can't unless, we find out that something that surprise the schedule is. Yeah.
Okay, wait. I was getting confused with you. Sorry. I don't think you're going to get a lottery pick. I think Erik will for sure only get one. He's not going to get 0.
Erik's not getting 2. I will get 1 if Jake and Clayton miss the playoffs, which we've discussed how that happens.
Yeah, sorry. So I guess the roundabout way what I was
there's no way where we get.
Yeah, no.
There's no scenario in which we both get 1.
Right. I guess what I meant to say, and I confused myself with, and again, the reason we're so confused by this is that the playoff scenarios are so complicated. But I think what I meant to say is I expect Clayton and Jake to make the playoffs, but I don't expect both of EBO and Anthony to make the playoffs with Clayton and Jake missing. We can, I guess we'll get into this a bit with our predictions, but like, who do you think the odd man is, the odd man out is at this point?
It's got to be Anthony, right? Anthony's got to face Conor, and he needs not only to win, but he needs something specific, which is the other matchup not to tie. Yeah,
but like, I get the EVO as this like proclivity to tie, but like I don't think it's not like one of those like when you see the NFL playoff scenarios in week 17 and you like a win and 4 teams to lose. It's like a win and it doesn't matter which team loses, just one of them has to lose. I think the harder part is beating Conor, but it's not like Conor's not beatable.
That's true. Yeah, Conor can very easily have a bad week.
And one of EBO or Clayton and Jake could easily have a bad. It's just, it comes down to 7 days now. It's like anybody can have a hot 7 days or a shitty 7 days. I had a hot 7 days last week, and this week I had a shitty 7 days. And I went from beating a playoff team to losing to a team that like has no business making the playoffs and didn't set his lineup at the beginning of the week. Like it just, I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. I think Anthony's probably the odd man out, but like, it's weird to me just how realistic his path to the playoffs is.
Yeah,
but as are the other two as well.
I mean, that makes sense when there are two teams fighting for 3 spots. They all have realistic chances.
Right.
But they've all got realistic shots, but something's got to give, and one of them has to have the unlikely chance of not making it.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I have a hard time wrapping my head around just how crazy this whole thing is played out, but this makes for an exciting last week. I don't remember the last time we had this much drama as to who's going to make the playoffs. Like I in recent memory, like I can't think of it. Like the first year was pretty cut and dry. A couple weeks before the playoffs. I think the second year was pretty similar. Like we kind of knew who the 6 teams would be. I think one team was kind of on the outside looking in. That might have been Clayton and Jake the entire time, but never quite made it. And obviously last year, it seemed pretty clear who the 6 teams would be. I think more of the intrigue was the seeding.
I think Erik still had a shot going into the last couple of days of making playoffs.
Yeah, but it was like a really long shot. It's not like right now where it's like they're like realistic avenues for all 3 of these teams getting in. Like Erik needed a lot to go right.
That's true. He did.
Like, you know, not a lot needs to go. Like obviously EBO and Clayton and Jake are winning in, but not a lot needs to go right for Anthony to make it in.
That's true. He just needs to win and an unlikely thing to not happen.
Well, maybe likely because EBO has more ties on the year than they do losses, but or I guess 13 wins and losses versus 17 ties. So that means EBO ties in 35% of their matchups. So a little over a third, which is not an insignificant number.
That is true.
I also love the whole symmetry of them potentially finishing 7-7-7. That just cracks me up as a side note. But
I love it. It's perfect.
Yeah. This after the podcast drops, we'll kind of lay out all the scenarios that we have typed up here. Like in chat form, because it is hella confusing to probably listen to all of this and try and keep track of it. But just know that it is crazy, and it is going to be a crazy last week.
It is. And do we want to do our picks now? Is that the last thing we have?
I guess, yeah. Let's pull those up. So if you recall, last week we were like, oh, this should be a pretty easy set of games to pick. But we were like, inevitably, like, we're not going to go 6-0. And sure enough, we were right, but we weren't that far off. You and I both picked myself to win. That didn't work out. But we both picked you to win. We both picked Conor to win. I picked Alex and Zach to win. You picked EBO to win, and they tied. We both picked Clayton and Jake to win, and we both picked Erik to win. So we both won 4-1-1.
Well.
Which means that I advanced to 73, 29, and 18. You are 65, 29, and math is hard, 26. So you're still 4 games back, same number of losses, but I have 8 more wins. You have 8 more ties. What's funny is I think the matchup that I assumed would almost guarantee be a win was the one that was a loss, and that was me and Ruthvik. But you know how these things go.
You really do. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You've been picking first the last couple of weeks. Would you like to pick first again this week, or would you like me to go first?
You can go first this time so that I
Ooh.
can adjust mine accordingly, so I
Okay.
can try and give myself a shot here.
All right, I'm going to pick the non-playoff implication matchups first, and then move to the playoff implications ones. I think I will beat Andrew. I will rebound before the playoffs start. I think you will beat Alex and Zach and put an exclamation point on your regular season. I think that, oh man, Ruthvik and Nick playing Yuki. I love the smack talk that's going to develop in this matchup. I think that they're both going to be a little motivated to outdo the other. And I think Ruthvik and Nick are just have the better pitching staff. I don't know, their offense isn't that good. I'm gonna pick him to tie because why not?
Why not?
I think Eric's gonna handedly beat Daniel, Alex, and Greg. I don't think it's gonna be particularly close. I think. Oh man. Conor v. Anthony is a tough one to pick because, like, on any given week, I think both of them have like really low ceilings. Or they have high ceilings, but like a very low floor. And I know Conor did well this week, but he could have one of those low floor weeks. But I feel like Anthony's been putting up more low floor weeks recently. I think Conor's just been playing better. So I think I have to pick Conor. And the other matchup's tricky too, because I think EBO is going to be under best behavior. I'm going to pick EBO. I don't think, and the one thing we haven't talked about yet is this could very well be EBO's last matchup in the league. If they lose this week and don't make the playoffs, that's just not Zane's way of going out. He's not going to go out with a loss. I think he's going to make the playoffs, and I think he's going to. I think he's going to beat them, and I don't feel super confident about that prediction. But it's Zane. He finds a way. It would be weird if he doesn't make the playoffs. I think he wins. In my predictions, EBO would finish as the 5, and Clayton and Jake would finish as the 6.
All right. I will give my picks. I think I'm going to beat the Tendies. I like the fact that I've got the bye and that it's locked up, which means I do not have to pay any attention to my team this week or next week. And I can just leave Darvish and Paddock on my IL and not make any roster moves while stuff gets figured out. Very good. I think you're gonna win. You're gonna beat the Crone Zone. I think that Ruthvik and Nick are facing Yuki. I'm going to go with Yuki. He's played a lot better as of late, and I think he's going to be more motivated than Ruthvik is. I think Erik is going to hand it to the Bellies. As for Conor versus Anthony, the smart money would be on Conor, but I've got to try and gain some ground. I'm going to pick Anthony to win.
Ooh, okay.
And stay alive.
Yeah.
Which means Anthony would be in the playoffs, barring a tie from EBO and Clayton and Jake. However, I got to pick the tie. I got to do it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I've picked the tie almost every week.
Chaos option.
I think 20. This is 20 out of 21 weeks I've picked a tie. I got to do it. EBO will finish 7, 6, and 8, more ties than either wins or losses, and just true EBO fashion to make this the most chaotic week possible. Which if my predictions all come true, that would be Clayton and Jake is the 5, EBO is the 6, Anthony as the 7, and in my mind, it's what else? A Reese Hoskins homer that ties the matchup between him and Clayton and Jake.
Damn. I like the maximum chaos option, and honestly, this seems like a pretty realistic thing to happen, just given EBO's proclivity to tie, and it would be a really fitting way to end the season. I hope both of those matchups go down to the wire on Sunday, kind of like today, where a lot of these matchups came down to the A's Yankees game. Actually, I want to look at what the Sunday night baseball game is next week, because I wonder who we might be looking at these teams next week.
Yeah, I will check.
It's the Dodgers and the Giants.
Gotcha. Yeah, for the sake of time, you want to check one matchup, and I'll check the other, so we have this ready. I'll check. I'm on Anthony's page. I'll check him.
Okay, I'll check.
So it's the Dodgers against who?
The Giants.
Yeah. So Anthony owns Lamonte Wade, and that is it for either team. Nope, he owns Kevin Gosman. I'm not sure when he's scheduled to start. He pitched on the 27th, so he might be lined up for that Sunday.
Oh, so the projected playoff matchup, or not playoff matchup, the projected pitching matchup per ESPN is Julio Urias versus Alex Wood. And guess who owns Alex Wood?
Ooh,
Clayton and Jake.
Clayton and Jake, isn't it?
Yeah, they also own DeSclafani, so things change. Maybe he starts.
Yeah, the thing about that matchup is starting pitchers probably aren't going to matter unless it's an ERA thing.
It very well could be, but also keep in mind their threshold for ERA and WHIP is going to be really low with EBO's relievers. But Wood just might be a guy that they bench because that might already be decided. EBO is Tyler Rogers, who I guess is getting a hold sort of Giants. They have Mike Yastrzemski. They have Trey Turner, Mookie Betts. So, like, they kind of have a lot of guys here.
Yeah, and I guess I should check Conor. Conor does not have anyone on either team, so Anthony couldn't get like a backdoor loss from something Conor does, which would knock him out of the playoffs.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe Alex Wood is an impact. I'm like really hoping there's some shenanigans in that last game. And maybe my guess is the way that would happen is like the hitting categories are really close. And EBO has all those guys in the last game and they have to like figure out can they get over in like runs or doubles or whatever. But can you imagine if like OBP is also close and EBO has to balance like, is this gonna risk like winning OBP? To get the runs and the doubles, like how's that going to work out? So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm rooting for this chaos. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. It's going to be fun, and we're going to be watching those. Neither of us have anything interesting in terms of our matchups this week, so it's going to be all eyes on these three teams all week, and I'm excited.
Oh yeah, the only thing I'm looking for my team this week is to not get hurt and to maybe rebound a bit after this week. But most of my attention is going to be in these other two matchups. I'm really curious to see who makes the playoffs. I can't wait to preview the matchups next week. It's going to be a blast. We're finally hitting the scary part of the season. There will be 16. There are 6 teams in this league playing their last week this week, and the week after will be 2 playing their last week, 2 the week after, and then you get the finals. We're reaching the end.
Yeah, But speaking of those three teams, we have, and this is an exclusive, we have a triple interview. We are talking to Anthony, we're talking to Jake, and we're talking to Zane. All three of them are going to talk about what they think of this final week and what if they're confident in their team and just kind of what their strategy is. It's going to be a huge interview. You're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. I mean, I know Cam and I have talked a lot about these matchups, but it would be great to hear from the teams that are actually involved. They have a lot more stressful weeks than we do just to make it into the playoffs, and I'm excited to hear from them.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, they're coming up just after this break.
If you wanna know the real deal about the three, well, let us know you we're triple trouble, y'all. We got to bring you up to speed. Check it out. Here's one for the bleachers and the upper tier. Versatile, all temperature. If you wanna drink on Mr. Belvedere, run this rap game like a brigadier.
All right, we have a very special interview now. We are joined by all three teams right on the playoff bubble. We have Jake, Anthony, and Zane. How are all three of you doing today?
Doing well. How about you?
Pretty good.
Doing good.
I'm bad. I don't want to be on the bubble.
Yeah, no,
No, I'm kidding. I'm good.
well, definitely a stressful place to be going into the last week. I'm sure you'd like to be like Cam and I'd have a bye locked up, but does lead to a lot of intrigue. So I guess we'll dive right in with the questions. How do you all feel about the matchups this week? Why don't we go in inverse standings order? So let's start with Anthony.
Well, not too good. I'm on a bit of a slide recently, so I'm not too confident in my team's ability, but I think Conor is a pretty good matchup. I know he's had a good season so far, but I'm still not 100% sold on his team. So I think if there's any, one of the playoff teams I could face this week to get into the playoffs, I'm pretty glad that it's Conor's team.
I'd agree with that. Definitely is going to be an exciting matchup, and who knows, maybe you two will play again next week. That would be a lot of fun. What about you, Zane?
Here's where I'm at. Our offense for this bullpenning strategy to like really take off the way we want it to. The offense needs to be better than it has been, because if you go through the stats, we lead the league in WHIP, we lead the league in ERA, and we double everybody else in saves. My biggest shortcoming as a GM this year is we should not be in second place for holds, but Sahil, you have executed it masterfully, and you are almost doubling us in holds. Well, that's hyperbole, but it's like way higher. But we only really have our offense is top 5 in every category, but that is translated into so many ties that even if I feel decent about this week's matchup, and realistically it turns into a tie because half of our matchups seem to go that way. Well, not half, but a third of them, literally over a third. The fact that we tie over a third of our matchups, there's decent odds it happens this week. I could easily see us going 7-7-7, which would be pretty poetic in my opinion. But I don't know, if we reach the playoffs, it's going to be hilarious because the odds of us tying are so high, and we're going to be like the 6th seed. So that's not going to fly.
Luckily for you, if you tie this week, you are the 6th seed. But God, it's weird for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to need some confirmation on what happens if I lose and Anthony wins, because I don't know if he has the tiebreaker.
So let's so we talked about it earlier in the episode, but you guys haven't heard that yet. So basically, here's how it works. If Jake and Zane, if either of you win or tie, then you are in. If you lose, if you lose, you're out unless Anthony wins. So basically, you just both need to win or tie.
Lose you're out unless Anthony loses.
You're out in the. Oh, yep. Yeah, there it
Yeah.
is. There's a lot. And then Anthony needs a win and needs Jake and Zane to not tie.
Yeah, literally, like it doesn't matter which one of Jake or EBO wins, the matchup just can't end in a tie. And with Zane's proclivity for tying this year, that's no guarantee. And that's about the closest that someone could come to controlling their own destiny without fully controlling their own destiny. So it's almost like winning in for all three of you, essentially. They're pretty close to it for Anthony and definitely for Clayton and Jake and EBO.
Yeah, because as far as tiebreakers work, Anthony, you have the tiebreaker over Jake. Jake, you have the tiebreaker over Zane. And Zane, you have the tiebreaker over Anthony.
And Anthony can only be the 6th seed. Clayton and Jake and EBO could be 5 or 6.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. No, because I was looking back when Zane didn't tie last week when he was losing by a little bit, but ended up tying. So
Yeah.
Well, we were playing against Alex, who somehow has 5 ties himself, which is hilarious. How are they like sneaking up on our ties?
Okay, but also now is there a chance that I tied Sahil week 1?
No, so the way that would have worked is had that game resumed. So that game was April 11th. Had that game resumed before April 18th, those stats would have counted for fantasy purposes. But because the game started today's August 31st, so like more than 5 months afterwards, ESPN won't retroactively count it. 7 days is the cutoff for them. So unfortunately, does not count for you. Otherwise, it'd make things a lot simpler. I think Pam explained it off the air. That would have eliminated Anthony. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so, which is super weird that could have an effect on Anthony's season. But yeah.
And Javi Baez wasn't even on the Mets too when that game started, so that would have really been really screwy. That would have been the difference maker, but evidently no effect. There's not going to be any sort of effect.
And I think I remember at the beginning of the season I was benching Javi because I had Bo and Glaber taking up my shortstop roles, and then Jordan and JD were both DH only at the time. I've had a lot more flexibility since then.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple podcast episodes where I was like, you have to trade like one of these guys.
I mean, I traded Semyon for the season.
Yeah,
it'd have been nice to hold on to him, but got Kate Cavalli out of it, so not.
That saved my offense.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, back to how I'm feeling about the matchup. Kind of like them saying, like, I know I'm going to take strikeouts and quality starts here. I'm really hoping I can somehow steal ERA whip if there's some blow up by someone in Zane's bullpen. And then I just need the offense to come through. And I don't feel too bad about the offense. Hunter Renfroe just came back from bereavement, so that's good for me. Everyone seems to be hitting pretty well. I've made a couple additions over the last few weeks. Manny Machado at the time when my team, I think it was 4 games under 500. That I know, Sahil, you had some concerns about, but that's turned out to work out really well for me. And then Jose Abreu, Luke Voigt have been big additions. Jorge Soler is starting to hit really well. So I feel good about the offense. I guess we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, credit where credit's due. I thought after the start of your season, you were done. I think you were like 2-6 or something, and then
I believe so.
you have bounced back. And it's crazy to me. And I talked about this earlier, but like you were selling early in the season, and like Lance Lynn and Zach Greinke were on this roster, and they very much are not now. And it's interesting that despite not having them, you've been able to bounce back. But let's move on to the next question here. If your team misses the playoffs, what does that mean for your team? Like, do you think that's going to change your strategy in the offseason? Is it too early to know? Let's start again with Anthony here.
I actually don't think it'll change it too much for me, because going into this season, this is actually where I expected to be fighting for the last playoff spot. And I just sort of got surprised by starting out really hot and then falling back to earth. So I might end up trading away some of my older veterans, someone like Grandal or Seager, or someone that has value in just in an effort to get younger and bolster my minor league system. But other than that, I don't see myself doing too much.
Well, whoever takes over my team, I'm handing them a note that says, sorry about the starting pitching. Enjoy the bullpenning strat. I mean, honestly, if they could improve how the holds operate and kind of fix the fact that I have 4 starters on the roster because I'm just looking for like one guy to give me not even a quality start, but like 5 innings and 1 earned run.
Yeah.
If they could fix that, that'd be great. One fun fact that I wanted to throw in is I was going through our stats and EBO has 5 quality starts this year. The next lowest team is the Flex and Bellies with 63. God, that's so good.
God.
Yeah. That is as blunt and blatant of a punt as I have ever seen in this league. So there's that.
5 different teams had 5 quality starts last week.
Yeah. So, but besides that, I mean, I can't see it changing too much. I think that this team's path forward would benefit from continuing to do the bullpenning strategy. I think that that's the only real way to the bullpenning strategy is really the only way for this team to really break through. I think at this point in its current iteration, there's so much hitting on the team that's going to age out, but there's a lot of guys that are in their prime or entering their prime, and the farm system's really loaded with bats specifically. There's only a couple of arms that literally the only arm I can think of is Shane Baz. Yeah, he's the only pitcher in our entire farm system. That's intentional. And yeah, I don't know. We need to add the 3 prospects that graduated. We need to fill those slots. But besides that, honestly, I think this team will have to steer a pretty consistent course. I would not rebuild this team if I was holding on to it. I think there's too much talent. Though, if somebody wanted to go Sam Presti on it, I've really left them as Sam Presti of a start as possible. So, hey.
That's so true. I think there's a number of paths that this team could take in the offseason. I think it really depends on who takes over, and I'll be really curious to see who Erik ends up going with. Yeah, we'll have you on again with Max to kind of discuss your all's exits. So we'll get into that later. But Jake, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as Anthony. I'm always looking towards the future, not just simply this year. Like Machado, he's 29, 30 years old. He's not just a 1-year guy. Even in the move for Landford and Zach Greinke, I got back Luke Voigt and Kyle Lewis. Those are both guys who I see contributing heavily next year. And even my pitchers, Mike Clevenger and Steven Strasburg, are 2 of my best starting pitchers, and they haven't pitched at all this year. So I think I'll really improve my pitching next year. So yeah, I don't think it will really change anything too much. I got a lot of guys on the IL, so might have to make a couple of trades, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a solid foundation of a team here, and I definitely think you can, just kind of stay to track and improve in the offseason. I think you've put together a nice group of talent. Last general question for you all. Between Erik and Conor, is there a team that you would prefer to play in the first round? We don't know which seed they're going to be. I think more likely than not, Erik will be to 3 and Conor will be to 4. But Erik just lost Lance Lynn. He landed on the IL. So might make things interesting. Who would y'all rather play in the first round?
I think I'm actually going to go with Erik. Yeah, I mean, his starting pitching is terrifying even without Lynn. So I probably wouldn't be able to beat him there unless some miracle happened. But I really don't like his offense that much. He's got a lot of players that have had, hot streaks recently, but for the most part, aren't very intimidating. Like Elias Diaz is his catcher. He's got Connor Joe and Rafael Ortega in the outfield and Frank Schwindel. And these are guys that are hot right now, but in a week, I don't know if they still will be. So I think his offense could take a big hit next week.
I love that answer. I mean, I think that kind of sums up his strategy. It's either they're really hot and it really works, or they just kind of tank. And that volatility is just so difficult to predict. What about you, Zane?
Connor, 100%. I know Connor beat us early in the season, but Erik, if you go through the stats, is above us season stats in every hitting category except on base percentage, which even stolen bases, which we have like most of the stolen base guys in the league. He has 5 more steals than us. So, I mean, he has a lot of good steal guys too, but like we have like some of the like very clear noteworthy guys like Trey Turner. So that right there makes me say Connor, even though with Erik, he has 8 saves on the year, so we would win saves, but that does not bode well for us matching up against him because that means he's put everything into holds. And oddly enough, we're second in holds and we have more than him by 13, but he's in third tied with Cam. So unfortunately, we don't really match up. I mean, everybody's going around the fact that we have so many saves. So yeah, that's something too that whoever runs the team next year needs to reconfigure is we have too many strong saves guys and we need more just holds guys, even if they're just like whatever guys.
Absolutely. On your note of steals, you forgot the league leader in steals, Starling Marte. And just to put things in comparison, in 145 games in 2018, he had 33 steals. 2019, in 132 games, he has 25 steals. This season, he's only played 92 games, but he has 42 steals, which is already 17 more than 2019 and 9 more than 2018 in fewer games. So he's having a crazy year. Just wanted to give him a shout out. Interesting that you two are split on the Erik Connor question. Jake, you could break that tie. Who would you rather play?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna say Erik here. So like I'm looking back at my 2 matchups with both of them. With Connor, I lost 5-7, I think 3-9. And so I really haven't been too close with him. Erik, I won my last matchup 6-5-1. In my first matchup, I lost 5-6-1. But the last day, my pitchers allowed 19 earned runs in 10 innings. I lost ERA by 0.01. And so if my pitchers didn't just completely blow up, I would have won that matchup too. So I think I feel confident there that my hitting will be good enough where I can take the quality start with strikeouts and then hopefully steal ERA, whip, and whatever other pitching categories. So I think I'm going to say Erik here.
This is interesting. I honestly thought that this would be more one side towards Conor. So it's interesting to me that it's kind of a 2-1 split in favor of teams wanting to play Erik. But yeah, before we get into the more specific questions here, we have one specific question for each of you. Do you have any other general questions you wanted to ask, Cam?
No, that was just about everything I had.
Yeah, let's start with Anthony here. We know you bulked up your pitching during the season. You traded for Kevin Gausman. But one of the things I think we've noticed the past couple of weeks is maybe the offense hasn't necessarily lived up to its potential on a consistent basis. I guess, how are you feeling about those guys going into the playoffs? I mean, I know Laureano's suspended, Trout's hurt, Grandal just came back, Santana's struggling. So a lot of it's just been injuries for you. But, how are you feeling about this group?
Not too great, to be honest. Grandal's been off to a good start coming off the IL, so that's encouraging. And, that's really about it, though. Santana's had a rough stretch. Xander Bogaerts has struggled recently, and Andrew McCutcheon's had a rough month or so. So I'm not really confident about it, but, I think this group has potential. Kyle Tucker has been good this year, and Jazz Chisholm has had a good rookie year. And so, I think I might need a couple things to go right for me, but I think that there's potential to have a solid week here.
Definitely. I'd agree with that. I think there's some very solid pieces in this offense, and obviously getting some of these guys back next year, like Trout and Laureano, are going to make for a better offense. And as you mentioned, Grandal's been fantastic all year when healthy. So, I mean, just him is a huge addition. I think he had 2 homers and 8 ribbies in like his first game back or something, just insane. Nice to have a solid catcher back there. But Jake, let's move over to you. Our question was not about your offense, but your rotation. How do you feel about your rotation going into the playoffs? You added a lot there at the deadline. Zach Gallen, you got from Ruthvik, Sandy Alcantara from the Bellies. You got Carlos Carrasco from me. Obviously, you have Luis Castillo kind of as the ace of that rotation. But as I mentioned earlier, you did trade away Lance Lynn and Zach Greinke early in the year. So you did shed some depth, and, Strasburg is out for the year. How are you feeling about the rotation? Do you think this is a playoff rotation?
Yeah, I think it's definitely good to compete. It's good enough to compete. Frankie Montes has been great. I mean, I'm just looking at his game log here. He has 6 quality starts in the last 7. I mean, some of my other guys, I picked up Patrick Corbin. He's been shaky, but I think he still has the stuff to put it together. Zach Allen's been okay this year. I'm expecting him to take a step up next year, but if he can really deliver, down the line, that'd be great. Like you said, Sandy Alcantara, he's been great. Just some concerns near the back of the rotation, but I'm really trying to just rack up those strikeouts and then get a quality start, hopefully from some of those back end guys. And I think just with the volume, I'm usually able to do that. And I think I've been pretty successful in getting both of those categories each week. And so I think I'll just have to look at the matchups too. But yeah, I honestly feel pretty good about them. I think I have enough options now that I can throw guys out that I'm not too concerned about, blowing up the ERA and WHIP. Because I know that right when I traded away Lynn and Greinke and Kyle Gibson, actually, I didn't have Alcantara or Carrasco or Gallen yet. That's when the depth was really hurting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you added like a nice set of options there. I might not count Patrick Corbin as nice, having dealt through the pains of rostering him for most of the year, but definitely Gallen, Alcantara, and Carrasco have been pretty solid over their past few starts. And I'm definitely liking this rotation for you. Let's move on to Zane here. So we talked about Anthony's hitting. We talked about Jake starting pitching. And of course, we have to talk about your bullpen. You've kind of gone into like the different aspects of the bullpen strategy, wanting more holds and maybe having too many saves. So I'm not going to get into that specifically, but I think a more overarching question, you made the conscious decision to go in on the bullpen over the rotation in the off season. Do you regret that decision, or do you think you made the right decision?
I think it was the right move. I mean, we're not competing in most of the starting pitching categories when playoffs come anyways. So the rationale is if we build the team a bit more playoff minded, probably prefer that and playing it risky anyways, because I just don't see us going for, I'm specifically hoping for like a 1 or 2 seed if I'm really wanting to go well balanced. And I just don't see us getting a 1 seed right now. I think that your team is too strong to get a 1 seed. So if I'm trying to build this team to be able to match up well against most teams in the playoffs, the one team that I don't think we match up well against, as I mentioned, is Erik. And I thought about that entering the year. I think the bullpen strategy is the way to go. And it had success during last year's playoff run. I can see it having success this year as well. It's more volatile for sure. I mean, right now I'm benching Craig Kimbrell because over the past week, past week last 15. He has a 9.64 ERA, and he has been like one of our star relievers. I mean, he's got a 2.06 ERA and a 0.88 whip on the season, and I have to be careful because he's given up an earned run or more in 3 of his past 4 outings. So it's just that like tiny of a margin. And in a similar note, I have to trust on starting pitchers that are hot and cold. Like, well, Blake Snell has been great lately, but most of the year I couldn't touch him. Just like last year, I might have to go to Matt Manning in an emergency start during the playoffs if I get there and I need an innings boost. And I even picked up Antonio Senzatella today. So picking up a Rockies starter to do something like this is just like it's better than last year doing 2020 Mize and Scooble, but not by much. And I don't know. I am very happy with how well Mark Melanson has performed. He's been just reliable all year. Tyler Rogers has had some up and down moments, but he has been incredibly reliable. Ryan Tape, like the thing about a bullpenning strat too is a pickup like Ryan Tapara has been like one of our best pickups of the year. So it's just things that we can do off the waiver wire that make the team like that much more competitive. Brad Boxberger too. So that I like because it also gives us the chance to put our excess value into the farm for the future. But yeah, I don't know. It's the best team built for the playoffs, but as the regular season has shown, it's so prone to ties. And if we lose this week, then we were 1 tie short.
Yeah. Oh man, it's definitely been an interesting season for your team. It's been just so confusing watching it. Just like
it's baffling.
Play out.
We have we're tied for the 3rd fewest losses in the league with Erik, but we have 7 wins on the season. So that puts us tied for 7th with Ruthvik, who's not even in the conversation right now. And then our 7 ties, I mean, if you exclude Alex, Cam's next with 3. So we're more than doubling Cam in ties. I don't know. I'd have to click through real quick. Last year we had 1 tie. I know that. The year before we had no ties. And then 2018, we had 3 ties. So I've had more ties this year than I had in the past 3 years combined.
Yeah, I feel like we're never going to see a season quite like yours again. I don't think any team is ever going to have more wins than they do quality starts on the season. I'd like to think at least, but
I don't even think I'm going to challenge matching it. I mean, if Blake Snell gives us one tonight, cool. I'm not going to pitch another starter this week.
There you go. Yeah.
And if he tanks, then congratulations on your playoff appearance, Jake.
Thank you. Courtesy of Blake Snell, who I traded you.
Yeah, if Blake Snell does this for you tonight, then hey, the covert operation worked.
Mm-hmm. The double agent.
Double agent. Just crazy stuff. Exciting end to the season. I've just talked a bunch, Cam. Do you have any more questions for these guys before we wrap up here?
No, I should tell the listeners we came up with the questions together, but Sahil was the one who wrote the questions down.
Yeah.
So he kind of has them ready, which is why I was a little silent. But yeah, no, just really exciting. Going back in 2019, there were 5 ties across the entire season, and now EBO has tied 7 times.
I'm pissed. I knew it was going to happen, and I'm still mad.
It's weird.
No, honestly, I think it's pretty funny. What a way to go out.
I just maximum chaos, just the EBO way.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to lose, but ironically, there's still 2 teams that have fewer losses than we do, which is hilarious. We've tied 7 times, and yet Cam, you and Sahil have managed to lose less than we have.
Man, I mean, God, remember that Reese Hoskins game? Have we talked to you about that game? Have you come on to talk about
Yeah, that sucked.
I think that's an understatement.
That was the moment in the season where I was like, yeah, this is just a meme season at this point.
Well, it's funny too. Cam and I talked about this earlier in the pod, but there's like little moments that like had such profound impact. So like Alex Reyes blowing the save on Sunday for Anthony, or Andrew choosing not to start Jesus Luzardo on Sunday when he would have won the matchup, or Jake giving up 19 runs that day to lose ERA by like 0.001. I think Reese Hoskins is like the most glaring example of that. But him getting I think it was a double instead of a home run. It's crazy. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think this has been a fun season, and thank God we got a full fantasy season after the abbreviated 2020. That definitely was not as much fun.
I disagree. It was way more fun. My team was better. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, this is karma for me because in my main fantasy football league, I had a season last year where any miracle play, any kind of miracle thing that could happen in fantasy happened to me in a good way after I started 0-4, all the way until I lost to friend of M-SABR, Chris Seeger, in the finals, who finished under 500. So honestly, it already rearranged itself here. It shouldn't be taking itself out on me anymore, but here we are.
Oh God. Nuts. Just who knows? Maybe by a miracle you'll make it to the finals and win it all.
I mean, I don't want to face any of you in the playoffs right now. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Hey, don't worry. You have a tiebreaker. It's okay. You guys have tiebreakers, and I am like only gonna tie anybody.
Honestly, yeah, it's gonna be really funny when you tie 6-6 in the semis, and we're just like rip. Speaking of Erik, by the way, Zach Greinke on the COVID list. So maybe you all who said you'd rather play Erik. Now Lynn and Greinke are out, who Jake traded to them. So maybe Lynn and Greinke are also double agents.
Oh, maybe.
There we go.
Yeah,
I'm recruiting all the pitchers. Watch out next time I trade a starting pitcher to you.
Yeah, shit. Well, Eflin's out for the year, it looks like. So, he looked like he's going to come back last week and landed right back in the IL. So,
how's Kyle Gibson been on the Phillies, if you know off the top of your head?
He's been decent. Like, surprisingly, like, I thought he was a big candidate for regression. But he is like, he's been better than I thought, I feel like. Let's see if I can pull this up quickly.
He's just waiting for the playoffs.
He's a 3.16 ERA.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid. And 37 innings and 6 games pitched. So he's still averaging like 6 innings. That's solid. But yeah. And one more tidbit I'll add, just because Anthony's on. Xander Bogaerts just left the game in the bottom of the second.
There goes my playoff chances.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking of a Red Sox fan there. That's annoying.
Yeah, it's a loss for everyone. Bogaerts has been very good this year.
My Red Sox strategy with Hunter Renfroe and Kike Hernandez has worked out extremely well. Which I did not expect.
Yeah, I had them both earlier in the year, and they were both terrible at that point. Yeah. And now they have really turned it around. I mean, good for them, but very frustrating to watch for the rest of us looking at your team potentially making it into the playoffs with those two hitting well. But yeah, anything else, Cam, before we wrap up?
No, that's just about everything we had. We kept you about 10 minutes longer than we said we would, but that's okay. I just want to thank all of you for coming on. It's really great to have this segment, and going to be a really exciting week.
Yeah,
hopefully we'll be back on for a playoff podcast.
Hopefully. And Zane, if this is your last matchup in league history, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I hope it isn't, and I hope it is at the same time, just because I'm afraid of the tie.
And then no shame in going out on a tie. And strangely, a tie would help you out this week.
Well, a tie this week won't send me home. It will be a tie next week.
Exactly. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for coming on. And yeah, Cam and I will be back next week, and we'll see which two of you are going to be very happy at the start of next week's episode, and which two of you, or which one of you, it's not going to be so happy. But until then, good luck this week to all of you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Nice talking to you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, love.
Here's a toast to getting old, and now we're young and soon we'll die. Nothing lasts forever. One more weekend in the city. Break up for the summer, leave me all alone. One more weekend, can you kiss me? Tell me that you miss me. If you want. I guess my memories get better with the distance, so I made a list.
No, I'm gonna scratch this. I don't know where I'm going.